All right, let's get into it. Let's dive into John Wick Chapter 4. The fourth film in this franchise definitely will not be the last, depending on spin-offs and prequels and stuff like that. Obviously, we know that 2 official spin-offs are coming in the sense of both the Ballerina and the Continental prequel, which I don't know if you saw, Gio, but the Continental prequel is confirmed to be 3 90-minute episodes.
Correct.
So
It's like a limited series, right?
which I mean, it's essentially 3 movies is essentially what it is. So,
Right.
because the first John Wick was like an hour and 20 minutes. So I'm all for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, let's talk about this, man. Because look, this movie, there's a lot to dive into for a lot of reasons.
There is.
Not just the story, not just the action, not just the runtime, but you also have the cinematography, you have the supporting actors, you have the ending, and just keeping in mind for everyone watching, this is all spoilers. We're not holding anything back. You will be spoiled on John Wick Chapter 4 while we talk about this. So prepare yourself. This is what's happening. There's a lot to dive into. So before we get into all the details, just Gio, quick thoughts, your elevator reaction to John Wick Chapter 4.
Well, I kind of touched on it on the short that we did for the channel, but I'll say it again. I have not had this much fun in a movie theater since Top Gun Maverick. And I know Top Gun Maverick released last year, but Top Gun Maverick wasn't just a fun movie. I mean, what's beyond fun? Like that experience and just like being wowed and, leaving the theater and being reminded of, wait a minute, this is the 4th movie in a franchise. Usually it starts, going down a little bit and, just my opinion, but somehow it went up. Every movie has gone up. Sure, you can argue 1 and 2, but like they just continue to elevate their game. Keanu Reeves is amazing. The world building, the action set pieces, they continue to get more and more creative. Incredible, man. What about you?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's everything that you kind of want to see from this style of movie. We talk about it a lot. Like, I think I'm trying to think of a franchise that does it, and maybe it'll come to me as we kind of talk about it. But this type of franchise, whether it just be action, hard R, whatever, it does need to kind of like up the ante every time you see it.
Right.
Because you can't just see the same thing over and over again. And I'm not talking in the sense of something like the Fast and Furious franchise where it kind of jumps the shark over and over and over again.
Or
I'm talking more so the Mission Impossible movies is very similar in kind of the style it's being told is like the stunts in particular for Mission Impossible always seem to get a little bit bigger, but they're much more realistic.
Right.
The action just gets better and longer. And they seem to just know what it takes. And they understand. The big thing is that they understand how to input the action into storytelling.
Yeah.
Whereas something like the Fast and Furious franchise, and there's a ton of other franchises out there, I'm just using it as an example, but something like the Fast and Furious franchise does action just to do the action, to make it look cool, to input it. This drives the story forward. Every single time you see something, there's a meaning to it.
Right.
There is a purpose. There's an understanding to all of it. And so I think that's why it's so successful. And I don't know if you saw it, but every movie in the franchise, and I know that we don't care about Rotten Tomatoes, but every single one has gone up in percentage. This is the highest rated out of the 4.
That counts for something. Yeah. They're, definitely doing something right. And, you just think about, you said earlier, the first movie is like an hour and 20 minutes long, and it's a very simple story, like if you think about it, it's a very like straightforward, he's retired, then he goes and he kills, and then like with the second and third movie, they continue to build the world and just, what they're introducing. It's never overboard. It's never forced, in my opinion. Like, I can't wait to talk about the Akira character and Hiroyuki Sanada and, just the different continental hotels, whether it's, Paris or New York or Japan, like they
Osaka.
Osaka, yes, exactly. Like, oh my god, I can't wait to talk about that whole sequence. It's just
The Osaka
amazing.
sequence, I think overall, as far as like a setting in the film, was probably my favorite out of the entire movie.
Dude, man, they're pulling out, swords, katanas, and they got bow and arrows and just the whole thing, dude. And I mean, yeah, we'll get to that, but yeah, man, to your point, it's just, it's no surprise that the Rotten Tomatoes is, continue to gradually increase, and they're they're going about it the right way. Chad Stahelski, I botched his name, but for a while he was uncommitted to John Wick 5, and doing it, very quick. He's like, no, let's take our time with this. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And their formula is just it's what we miss about these action movies. I don't know if you want to call them B movies or whatnot, but like, you think back to the early 2000s with the Bourne franchise and then 007 and all that stuff, and it's just like John Wick is proving that if you go about it the right way with the amount of dedication and care, like these movies have a place in Hollywood and they can be successful. I mean, that opening weekend, insane. Bravo.
Yeah,
Congratulations,
I think
everybody.
it was the highest grossing R-rated film since 2020. It was like close to 80 million, I think is what it was,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, just under, yeah. But man, well deserved, dude.
Yeah, it's definitely special. I mean, it captures, and you can tell that um and Keanu obviously comes a little bit from that time period, but you can tell that Chad Stahelski understands, but also is a massive fan of those 80s and 90s action movies
Hmm.
that were so successful in that vein. But he's able to do so much more because obviously it's 30 plus years later and he has the technology to do it. Movies like that back then couldn't do that because of scale and just the way the business was going at that time. He has everything at his disposal now, and it's clear. You mentioned quickly when you were talking about your reaction, but you talked about the world building. I think that's why for me this franchise is like the number one reason why it's so successful
Hmm.
is it is able to take what happened from the previous film and not just kind of use it to its advantage, but build off of it in a way that makes absolute sense.
Right.
Um, and particularly, we've heard about the table and these characters, and and then we really kind of dive into it now and understand like we're getting more and more information about this character in this world and the assassin atmosphere that all of these characters operate in and how that works. And we've seen it before, but we haven't seen it on this type of scale.
Hmm.
Um, and just quickly, I don't know how much we'll talk about him, but shout out to Bill Skarsgård, who I thought was fantastic as the
Yeah.
Marquis.
I like this
I thought he
character.
put I thought he played a great character. The specific role that he had for the Marquis was great.
Hmm.
And I thought he fit it very, very well. But yeah, I just love the world building. I think the world building is fantastic. The way that they use, the characters around them and give them backstories, but how they're kind of connected and things that they have to do and how it all works. It's just very, very exciting, and it just locks you in. It just really locks you in into just accepting all of it, and I think that's a big deal.
100%, man. And for one thing I was worried about with this movie is, I don't know if you were the same way or to the same extent that I was that runtime, right? 2 hours and 49 minutes. And I'm just like, that is a lot of Keanu Reeves killing, and it you run the risk of like get oversaturating it, if that makes sense, with this franchise. It's just like, okay, like he's limping, he's falling off buildings, and just like taking gunfire, and just he can't seem to miss. He's always hitting his targets and whatnot. But again, the choreography, the camera work, especially in this one, is the best that it's ever been, and that's coming from somebody who really loved the chapter 3 parabellum. Yeah.
Mhm.
And just, man, like, again, like they just they somehow pulled it off, and it's not supposed to work after 3 movies, going into the 4th movie, but they do, and it's just, whether it's, giving, John Wick, different types of weapons, like, there's one sequence where he's firing a gun, a rifle, and, like, people are, like, going into flames and whatnot, and it's just like, "Is
It
this
was my
actually
that was my
zombies that
favorite
we're
that was
fighting?"
my favorite action scene of the movie.
Yeah?
And I forgot the name that they gave it. They gave it a specific name. It's like the fire bullets or something weird like that. But the
Right.
reason why that is my favorite sequence in the film is because of the bird's eye view.
Mhm.
I we
Yes.
we have never, and obviously I haven't seen every single film on the planet, but we have never seen a full blown action tracking shot, and
Right.
everyone knows how much I am obsessed with tracking shots. A tracking shot of a bird's eye view of an action sequence like that. We have never seen it before. And
Especially that complex too, man, just
yes, and it is very difficult to do, but it's also very difficult to do from that camera angle. Like
Mhm.
if it and look, they have ways of editing things together to make sure it's the dragon breath. Thank you, Shane. It's called the dragon breath,
Love it.
is what it was
I
called.
love it.
Yeah, it was called the dragon breath sequence. And look, there's probably ways that they could, edit things together and, you know, make it look like a tracking shot. And who knows,
Right.
maybe they did. But if it, let's just say for devil's advocate here, that it was in fact one shot. That is a very long sequence for everyone to be involved in. Keanu specifically going through the sequences, ducking under tables, jumping over couches, shooting people left and right. Like
Mhm.
it's not easy. And from a technical standpoint, that's why I love it so much because they are dedicated to giving us the best.
Yeah.
A lot of movies and a lot of movies in this style of genre would just be satisfied with giving us some sweet kills and some brutal action from a basic camera angle. But they are
Right.
constantly giving us things from a different angle on multiple levels. And another one is the car sequence when Keanu is shooting the guys in the car as he's doing the donuts.
Oh my
We
god.
haven't seen that before either. Like
Jesus.
I'm telling you, they understand how to elevate not just themselves but action in general. They just know what it takes to give a kick-ass, fun, just exhilarating experience at a movie theater, which is what we want 99% of the time. So it's phenomenal. It is phenomenal what they are able to
Man,
do.
dude. They call it the Arc of Triumph, I think it's
Probably,
what
yeah, I
the
think
the
so.
the landmark is called, dude, but
Mhm.
I'm just you're watching that and you're just like, "This is insane," and I'm smiling, ear to ear, and I'm just, like, having a blast, and I'm like, "How is this all, choreographed and whatnot?" But they do it to, like, damn near perfection,
Yeah, yeah.
And going back to that bird's eye view of camera angle, like, not since, Minority Report, which, was just talked about on the channel, where
I
you
forgot about that scene.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah,
That's
with
a
the
great
spiders, the
scene.
the mechanical
Yeah.
spiders and whatnot, but, like, that was probably an inspiration for Chad, and he's like, "No, we're gonna take it to the next level. Yeah, we're gonna, like, have these dragon breath shotguns and, like, all these characters, and then, the tracker we'll get to the tracker and the dog." There was one moment I just loved, and everybody cheered and, like, "Oh my god," with the dog, but, yeah, like, whether it's them, shooting out of cars and dodging cars and, gunfire and whatnot, or, the bird's eye view, or Osaka, and swords versus guns, and it's just all done so damn well, man. And you're just having a blast, and not one time did I feel like the action overstayed its welcome because of the choreography, because of the creativity, and just the dedication to make it the absolute best.
I agree. I 100% agree. Let's dive into some details. I want to, since we talked about so much, let's talk about Osaka. Let's talk about Osaka. Let's talk about the
Hmm.
characters. Let's talk about that sequence because it's very early on.
Hmm.
Um, we learned that, and I'm forgetting his name.
Who?
What is the character's name?
Which character?
The manager of the hotel. Oh my god, what's his character's name?
Oh, Hiroyuki's character,
Yeah, what's his character's name?
Shimazu.
Is
Shai.
Shimazu?
I have it here on Google.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, it is Shimazu. Okay, so Shimazu, we learned throughout the movie that they're essentially cutting off lines for John Wick to any of his friends.
Hmm.
And we learned that Shimazu is a very long friend of John Wick. They have
Yeah.
a very long history, and Shimazu is putting everything he knows at risk by befriending John and allowing him to stay there, helping him, etc.
And the daughter does
Um,
not like it,
and the
Akira.
daughter does not like it.
Mm-mm.
And I thought that it was a great dynamic between the two of them to have that little bit of a sequence there. Really, really cool that they added her in there. Akira, I thought she was an incredible character.
Yeah.
And I hope one day we get to see more of her because she kicked major ass in this movie.
Oh, we'll talk
Um,
about the post-credit scene.
yeah, but I think, it just, again, going back to that world building, like I love seeing all of the world continentals because we
Yeah.
hear about it. Like
Hmm.
it's not just an American thing, it's not just the European thing, it's all across the world.
Yeah.
And I love that the opening sequence is obviously set in the desert. We kind of get like a desert-ish version of the Continental, which I thought was really cool.
Right.
But the Osaka stuff, it's just so cool to see the different styles and different, assassins across the world and the different characters that are out there because there's so many of them.
Hmm.
The action's incredible, but I thought the story part of it was even more special than the action because it really plays into kind of what's happening with John Wick. And uh, William in the chat mentioned some music, but how they changed up the John Wick themes to play with the Osaka style was
Hmm.
brilliant.
Yeah.
It really is cool because there's a lot of franchises that would just go back to the same spot like over and over and over. Like they would use New York as the hub, right? They would just
Or
use it
yeah.
over and over and over. And we've
Mhm.
seen it multiple times, but we've gone all across the world in 4 movies and it keeps everything fresh and exciting. And
Right.
Osaka was no different. I thought it was a very cool, special place to visit, seeing a different style. Obviously, introduces some very cool people as well. But yeah, Jude, take it away, man. What did you think about Osaka
Well,
and all the characters with it?
yeah, to your point, the locations, right? And somebody who works in the hotel industry, like, I am familiar with, hotel brands that are overseas, and how different they are and they adapt to that culture. And, so I appreciate that, detail, and it's beautiful to see. But location and then characters, man. Like, you introduce these characters who have a history with John Wick, and you're literally seeing it through their performance and the conflict that it creates. Whether it's a Donnie Yen as oh my god, what's his name? God,
Kane.
Kane, or Hiroyuki, and just these are friends of John Wick building off of the third movie who are forced by the high table, or the high table is like forcing them to, like, you have an oath, an honor. You have to live up to it and do this for us. And they're just conflicted. And I appreciate it so much. And it's so well done. And yeah, Akira, she kicked ass. Okay. She went from like concierge to like takes off her uniform, and like she's battle ready. She has it underneath like a superhero, like Superman, or like Spider-Man or whatever. She's just like ready to go. And then she looks at John Wick like, "Are you armed? Let's go!" Bam. And then like we got to save my father, and we got to kick these a holes. And it's just, man, so well done. I love the shot where it pans around their standoff between Hiroyuki and all of the swordsmen and arrows from above, and the high table, and their don't you love their suits, man? Just taking all the
I
firepower, and they just
I love it, man.
cover up.
It's Kevlar
Kevlar,
built
yeah.
suits.
Hmm.
And I again, it was established. I want to say it was established in chapter 3 that they were Kevlar suits. I could have been earlier, but I know that Lawrence Fishburne's character specifically gave John a
Yeah,
Kevlar suit. I don't know if it was chapter 3 or not, but oh, hold on, Gio, hold on.
yeah. And Shane right here, K9 with the doorbells. Yes, that's what I'm talking about with the creativity right there. You're not doing more of the same, okay? Because we know Daredevil, existed and was amazing on Netflix, okay? Like audiences loved that. So if you're gonna give us a blind character who's also lethal with a gun and can kick ass, you find ways to, you know, introduce, just different creativity, levels of creativity. And the doorbells, I was like, okay, what is he sticking? Are those bombs? No, they walk past it, ding ding, bam. I'm like, oh, that's so beautiful. And it's Donnie Yen too, kicking ass, man. Oh,
Yeah, I
sorry,
loved
I'm
Kane. I thought Kane was great. I think the just options they used with him were incredible. I think um hold on, Gab. Hold on. I'm I'm on the show. I'll come out in a bit. I'll come in a bit. Sorry, Gio.
It's okay. Okay.
Yeah, I think the idea of him and the history with him and how they really use him was absolutely fantastic. And I love the doorbell stuff. You were talking about the doorbell stuff. Just everything about the character was a great addition. I thought that his kind of it was so interesting how they used his character as a friend and a foe, and
Yeah.
how much respect they obviously have for each other because they have so much history with each other, but they understand the rules of everything and the certain situations that are, at hand. So I thought the character of Kane was absolutely fantastic and the relationship with him was great. So
And his daughter too. Like, like he has something to fight for. And like, much like, all right, one man show. Here we go, baby. So, anyways, yeah, Kane, the daughter, and the fact that like John Wick, he had a reason to leave and get out. Okay, it was his wife, right? That's what this whole thing started with. His wife died, gave him a dog. Sorry, I just spoiled the first movie for whoever hasn't seen it. But opposite that, you have Kane with his daughter, and just he can't get too close because the high table is like, she will live, but you got to play by our rules. And then they bring that right back into it. And you're just like, man, what a conflict right there. Like, can you imagine that? Just, you know, you have to kill your longtime friend, somebody who's probably saved your ass a couple times. And if you don't do that, on the other hand, it's your daughter. And I loved the way that played out in the final act because it's like, so the story basically finds a what do you call it? Is it, would you call it a deus ex machina, where like there's this rule, an old rule that John Wick can get off and be pardoned and free. It's an old rule where he can challenge the Marquis, Skarsgård, to a duel, and if he wins, he's clear. His name is clear. He's free. But what does the Marquis do? The guy who he's been sending after John Wick, his best friend, K9, he says, you know what? You're going to fight for me. And it just makes it even more intense. And by the third act, you're just like, I don't want Donnie Yen to die. I don't want him to die. Okay, I want him to live. I want to see more of him in this world. And thankfully, spoilers, three, two, one. Thankfully, he does live. But man, the duel, it wasn't just any Western duel. Okay, they had to take paces, and every shot that they did, they were allotted a certain amount of bullets. Bam. After that, nobody's dead. Take 10 steps forward. Bam. Nothing. Okay, again and again, and it's just, you're at the edge of your seat and you're just like, oh my God, how is this going to play out?
sorry,
So,
Gio. My bad. My
no,
bad.
it's okay. I was just raving about, taking it way, jumping way ahead with Donnie Yen and how the Marquis forced him to duel his friend, winner take all. If you win, you're free. Kane, you get to be with your daughter and all that stuff. No limitations, no rules. But if John Wick lives, he's clear. And it's just, how'd you feel about all that, man?
I mean, I thought it played to the character of the Marquis very well. You always kind of got a little bit of a coward vibe from him. And, even though I thought that it was going to come down to him and Wick and that something was going to happen, I did love the twist of him choosing Kane as his second. I
Yeah.
thought it was a
If
great
John Wick would
touch.
have handled that, movie would have been done. Roll credits.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been a question, and I was curious on how it was going to end, and I figured that he was going to basically send his attack dogs after him to, slow down Wick, just like that happened, even though he was still facing Kane. That whole sequence of him essentially opening up, the tunnels for everyone to flood in and tackle Wick, and try not to get him up to the church on time. But yeah, I thought that sequence was beautiful the way it was handled. It was very old school Western, which I loved, and I love myself some Westerns, and
Hmm.
I love inputting that into the John Wick universe because we talk about world building a lot so far, and the assassin world in general, especially in this universe anyway, it's very much built on the old ways. They said it in the show or in the movie, excuse me, the old ways. And the old ways are very Western like that. It's paces, it's a pistol, it's one shot. If like you just talking about, if you miss or if you just clip, take 10 spaces forward. We're doing it again. It's very old school. So
And Jake,
um,
the way they set the terms of the duel, like
yes,
Shane
with the
mentioned, right? The
cards, with the
card scene. I'm
cards,
like,
yeah.
that's
I
great.
I and that's I don't think I've ever seen that before. Maybe it's happened before, but they were basically like it felt like in the best way possible. You're in like a video game lobby and you're picking all the settings,
Yeah, it's like
right?
high
Like
card, you know.
yeah, it's you're picking your weapon, you're picking your location, you're picking what the game is.
Yes.
It's is very cool sequence. Again, old school, just very old school. And to me, that is very much what the high table would do.
Hmm.
I think the high table would 100% um, make calls like that and live by those rules. And if you look back on the John Wick movie so far, there's things that have been inputted throughout these stories that very much play to that. So
Yeah.
I thought it was very cool. I don't know if you mentioned or not, but Kane slicing John's hand right before they get there with his I guess his sword technically.
Hmm.
Kane helps him up fight everyone up the stairwell. And right before he gets there, slices his hand. That way he can't use his strong hand.
Yeah.
Um, just a brilliant sequence and a brilliant move. I thought it was a great idea.
And it
Really,
gave us
really
what we
enjoyed it.
wanted because I'm like, oh, I really want to see Donnie Yen and John Wick, or Kane and John Wick team up, and they gave us that. They gave us that, and I'm like, yeah.
Did you did you uh did you believe or know that he didn't shoot
I
at the
caught it.
end? You did? So did I.
I caught
So
it.
yeah, so did
I
I.
was just like, oh, he didn't fire. Was that? And then like it played into like the marquee and who he is, right? Because he's very like, oh, I want to take the credit, because what did Winston say? By the way, Winston's arc in this movie I love.
Yeah,
But
me
what did
too.
Winston say in like that was might have been 2 or 3 scenes ago? Like he's talking to me, he's just like, if you kill Wick, he's convincing him, he's manipulating him. If you kill Wick,
Mhm.
you'll be remembered for all
Mhm.
time. You'll be the one. And he buys into it, and that plays in later when he's like, no, pause, I got this, I want to be the one to end it,
Yeah.
even though Donnie ended all the work and took bullets, his own, and he didn't fire. Bam, right there. Ah, beautiful, man.
Yeah. No, I thought it was great. I loved every second of the decisions they made, especially towards the end. Because in that sequence, like after you've seen everything in the movie, you need something to be different and kind of really solidify it, like put the exclamation point on it essentially. And
Yeah.
in that moment, you didn't need they prove that you don't need a bigger stunt in a bigger moment and a bigger scene to do that. You just need to have smart writing and just really, really good settings. Because like out of that's the smallest action scene we got the entire film, but it
Mhm.
was the most pivotal.
Yes.
So yeah, I thought it was brilliant. Let's picking off of that real quick, Gio, because we are gonna have to get to our bracket.
I know. We
Um,
could talk this movie another
yeah, we're
hour.
gonna have to get to our bracket, but what do you think of the ending? I'm curious.
Um, as far as what happens to John Wick and
Mm-hmm.
him Dead?
Do you believe it?
No, I don't believe it. I
Okay.
For one, okay, he was announced to appear in Ballerina. Now, one could say, well, Ballerina might take place before John Wick Chapter 4. And when I'm like, okay, cool. But I just, it's one of those things that mainstream Hollywood over the past 10, 15 years has made audiences accustomed to. Like, they're dead, feel sorry for them, and then all of a sudden they find a way to come back, right? Whether it's uh multiverse or a magic spell or whatnot. I don't know. I wonder just how far a movie has to go for me personally to believe a character is dead, you know, because nobody stays dead, whether it's Fast and Furious, Born, you
I'm
know.
kind of hoping that John Wick takes that into account and keeps him dead.
You think so? Or
I think he I
can they
think he
play into
is.
that?
I
Yeah,
think he is, and I hope he is.
right.
I Now look, I'd take a dozen more of these. I would take 12 more John Wicks for the rest of my life. I absolutely would.
Hmm.
And Shane, I don't know if that's confirmed or not. I don't I don't know if that's confirmed or not because I know that I read a headline the other day that said the ballerina is going to be telling the origin of the Baba Yaga. So it could be set. We don't know, but I think we can probably put a pinpoint on saying that the ballerina is a prequel. Um, we just don't know when. Being between 3 and 4 would be very odd because of the story that they were telling.
Right.
He's essentially on the run from the world, so it would be very odd to tell that story then. But who knows? We'll see. Anyway, um, I first of all, I love the ending. I thought that it was 100% the right ending. I thought it was the total right move. I thought that at that point,
The flashback.
uh, yeah, like not just the flashback, but where else does John Wick go from there? Like in that world, he got his freedom. He's no longer of obligations from the table. The entire time, that's what he's been fighting to get is to step away, not have to do that life anymore. He said the line, "Winston, take me home." Like he's done. He fought everything. He did what he needed to do. It's over and done with.
Right.
Um, Now, of course, he can get dragged back into things. I get it. That makes sense. I get it.
Yeah.
But why? Like, there's no other reason for John Wick to continue to fight on.
Unless
Like,
the high table does something like ridiculous to where like I don't know, like John Wick didn't really die, kept his death a secret, just went off the grid. And then you find out the high table, yeah, John Wick is clear, but we have other ways of hurting him or hurting his legacy or something like that.
I hope it's not the case.
I'm just trying to
No, no, no. I know.
around it.
You're
Yeah.
playing devil advocate, and I
Right.
totally get it.
Yeah.
I I legit think it's the perfect ending.
Right.
And like, sure, he could have survived and lived on, but his wife is gone, his dog is gone.
Is
Like,
it?
what else? What else does he have? Well, he hit the puppy. I mean, the
Yeah.
original dog.
The original dog, yeah.
Um, like, what else does he have to live for? He stepped back into a world he said he would never step back into.
Mhm.
Because of specific reasons. And it essentially took everything he had to get out of it again. Why go back? Like, we've seen everything we need to see from John Wick.
Yeah,
In
that's a
my
good point.
opinion,
Yeah, that's a
I
good
think
point,
we've
yeah.
seen everything we need to see from this character
Mhm.
regarding, like, okay, the entire movie is revenge for one person killing his dog and then
Yeah.
getting wrapped up in other business because of that killing.
Mhm.
That's over and done with now. Like, that's all squashed in my opinion is he got his freedom. They said it at the end. They respect the terms, they honor it. He's free from any obligations regarding the table. I don't think we need a 5. I don't. And I don't know if I want a 5 because they would just be doing it to do it at this point. Like most times if you see a movie, whether it's a second, third, fourth, whatever,
Yeah.
the door is kind of like creaked open, right? Like it's a
Right.
little open. But at the end of the film, like he's buried in the ground. They don't hint at him coming back. They don't hint that he's alive. Nothing. Like, of course, we didn't see him die. He kind of just tipped over on the stairs. I get it. But like the door felt closed to
And
me.
who was standing at his grave? It was Winston and the Bowery King, right? Both of
Yeah.
them. And they were like, we never thought we'd see the day.
Yeah,
So
and there was no inkling from any of them. And honestly, like in that moment, unless other people were around, why would they be talking about him being dead? Like,
sure. No, you have a lot of great points. And honestly, if this is it, it would be probably the best way to end it, right?
I
Him on
think
the
it's a perfect
stairs,
ending. I
the
do.
sunrise,
Yeah.
the flashback. He says his wife's name, which I forget, but says it one more time, Claire or something. But it
Oh,
would be
doesn't even have her name. I don't know.
it would. I mean, the only way would be like a prequel, set maybe before the first movie. There's more adventures with Donnie Yen, or sorry, I keep saying, I just want to say Donnie Yen's amazing,
You
but
can see Donnie and
Kane
Kane.
and John Wick, right? I don't know. Cast Adam Driver as a young John Wick and just get
But at that point, like
right. I just want to see more. I just
trust me, I
as
love John Wick,
and
but
we're gonna get the ballerina and
like I think that's
Continental.
the best way to use the character going forward is let him pop up in spin-offs. If you're
Sure.
going to use the character, let him do a little action scene in the spin-off. Like I don't
Okay.
know if I don't know if I need any more John Wick movies.
Helen, there you
Like
go.
I don't
Unless
as
they
much
focus
as
on other like set in the world and like
yeah, like we could get
Kane or
a
Akira.
Kane one. We can get what about like a Halle Berry one? You know, like
Yeah, what happened to her character? I was expecting to see her, but
I don't know, but I just think I think there is sometimes franchises and I this may not be the greatest example, but I'm going to use it anyway. We talked about for a long time with Star Wars. We don't need to tell the Skywalker stories.
right,
There's so many other stories out there, right? It's a galaxy full of people, planets, etc. We don't need to do that. Why not do the same thing with John Wick? We have seen through these 4 movies that it spans the globe.
yeah,
How many characters fit in that world? Like there are so many people you could tell stories about. Now, of
right,
course, it's not Keanu. We get it. But at the same time, like, do we need 5, 6, 7, 8 of these John Wick movies? I don't know. I don't
right,
think so. I think 4 is a
yeah.
great number because of the ending.
And like take the Fast and Furious for example, right? You run the risk of like overstaying your welcome, sort of, like for lack of a better, you know, expression. It's just like a lot of people felt Furious 7 should have been the last one, right? Because those
I
movies
think it
were,
100% should have
yeah,
been.
it was Brian O'Connor and Dominic Toretto, the two of them together. And in retrospect, I mean, looking back on F9, whatever, it's like, yeah, you probably had a point, but that franchise will come to a close soon enough, so we'll
We'll
see.
see if it comes to a close. We'll
Yeah, and I
see.
know we gotta move on, but I just want to rapid fire quickly some other things. Clancy Brown, I loved him in his
Such a perfect role for
minor
him.
role. Yeah,
Such a perfect role for him.
yeah, great. Scott Adkins as Killa.
Ha!
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my Gambit vibes and just Gambit and Kingpin put together, and just what a character and a badass character at that. Big dude, but when he kicked John Wick in his freaking chest, like John Wick flew, I'm like, oh, that's Scott Adkins right
Yeah.
there. Yeah, great stuff. Hiroki Sanada, his duel with Donnie Yen
So
to
good.
end
His
the first
character
half.
was so good.
Oh man, and I think it might have been Shane who mentioned it, but the right hand man for the high table, Shidey, I think the one who wore the
His name is Marco Zoror,
yeah,
the
great
actor
job.
name.
Enjoyed
Yeah.
him. And Jake, I texted you about this last night. Rest in peace, Lance Reddick. I
Yeah.
was not expecting his character to be killed, and just like the way for me, like, it wasn't a criticism of the quality of the movie, but it just took me out of the movie because of recent events and how he, you know, how the character, died and was just like saying, "It's been an honor, sir," to Winston, and it's just like, "Oh man, this is
Yeah.
too real," but
Yeah, it was
it
it
was
was
effective.
it was unfortunate that that's kinda how it ended, but, Gio and I talked about this. It was you could not have taken it out because of how pivotal it was.
Mhm.
It was a very pivotal piece to the film and the story that was being told because the whole story is based on a revenge, etcetera.
Right.
It's you could not have told it that way, but I do wanna quickly mention before we move on, uh, you didn't mention one person, that's Shamir Anderson as Mr. Nobody.
Tracker, yes, thank you, thank you. I
Unbelievable.
was gonna and dude, like, the moment where okay, he has a dog, right? The dog is ferocious and, like, isn't afraid to, like, kill. There's a moment, and it brought me back to Andrew Garfield saving Zendaya in No Way Home, spoiler, but that dog was about to die, and
I'm glad that dog didn't die because I would've walked out of
saved
the theater. I would've
John Wick
walked out of the damn
saved, and
theater.
everybody cheered.
Yeah,
Everybody cheered.
yeah,
I cheered. I applauded. I was like,
yeah. I will
"Yeah."
say quickly, I'm a little bummed that we didn't kind of find out more about him. That was my only knock on the movie is, like, what were his intentions the entire time, and why was he doing what he was doing? But I have a feeling we'll see him in the future, so,
Right.
um,
Man.
very excited for that.
Yeah.